This way. L'chaim Yidden. A gute Woche. I want you to spiel a nigen for Rabbi Hecht, who came to Mayon. L'chaim, everyone. A very holy moment. The great tzaddik Rabbi Hecht just walked in. Rabbi Yisrael Hecht, l'chaim. L'chaim. Ay. Gute Woche, everyone. A gute Woche. Yossi. Where's Yossi?
I'm going to be on YouTube, but I'm going to give you a kiss.
Ah.
How are you?
I'll tell a story about a kiss soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kiss is good.
Yes.
Can I wash and eat like as if I was
Yes, please do that. Do those, my dear friend. Go. L'chaim, everyone. L'chaim, l'bracha. First a niggin. Tonight we're going to be spending some time with the great and holy tzaddik, Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. Rabbi Pinchas ben Rabbi Avram Abba, Rabbi Pinchas Shapiro. Send a message to Shmuley Shapiro. No, this program is starting with a niggin. With a niggin.
Guy, you're invited to sing along if you know this song.
Yeah. Start getting it. Take a while for me to warm up here. L'chaim, everyone. L'chaim. L'chaim of the bracha. Tonight we have the great schus to be celebrating and having Melaveh Malka together with the great and holy tzaddik, Rabbi Pinchas Shapiro, who was born 300 years ago. He was literally born in 1725 was the year that the holy tzaddik Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz, one of the giants of Chassidic masters, a tzaddik of unimaginable greatness and incomprehensible heights, the great tzaddik Rabbi Pinchas of the city of Koritz. And his yahrzeit is not in the month of Teves. His yahrzeit is in the month of Elul, on Yud Elul. Usually we try to celebrate with a tzaddik whose yahrzeit is in that given month. But because we only do these Melaveh Malkas in the winter, and I really want to talk about the greatest students of the Baal Shem Tov, the first, the foundations of Chassidism, which Rabbi Pinchas is definitely right up there at the very, very top. It is so that this week we're going to speak about the great tzaddik Rabbi Pinchas. And because LA is on fire, let's try to bring in the holy Rabbi Pinchas to calm the fires of the city and to make sure that all the Jewish people are safe. So there's a few stories of Rabbi Pinchas that relate to this that I'd like to mention. We'll start first with a very important story of why Rabbi Pinchas is the man who we need to be the fire extinguisher over here and to put out the fires that are burning and raging in LA. So we invite the great tzaddik, Rabbi Pinchas. First of all, we want to thank the Tzadikim family, who sponsors our monthly Melaveh Malka, Reb Velvel, Tzikman, and his wife Paulina, who's not here now. Shem should bless them with all the abundance and all the blessings, and all the great blessings of the holy tzaddikim should shine upon them and upon their family for all the bracha that they need. Whatever it is that they need, Hashem should send them and give them the bracha, removing any possible darkness and only illuminating with the greatest lights and the greatest blessings, even with the greatest miracles. Amen. Also tonight, I also do want to mention that being that this event is in the month of Teves, in the month of Teves we have a special sponsor who sponsored the month of Teves, which includes all the events of the month of Teves, and that is Mrs. Greenbaum, Mrs. Bela Greenbaum, and she sponsored this month in honor of her husband, Olav Shalom, Rabbi Yaakov Greenbaum, who was a huge fan of Mayon Yisrael and a big supporter of us. And just 2 weeks before he passed away, he came running after me, chasing after me in the car, and he wanted to deliver me a check for the center. And then sadly, it was when I went to Australia to speak in Australia. Was I think the day that we left. He saw me on the street and he came after me. And then I think by the time I got back, he had passed away. Rabbi Yaakov ben Reb, what was it? Yosef Shmuel. Let me make sure. Give me a moment here. Rabbi Yaakov ben Reb Shmuel Yosef. Olav Shalom. May his yahrzeit is coming up this week. In Tezvav Teves, the 15th day of Teves. Kaim Asiyah B'Shlamusa. May this be a big schus for his very special Chassidic neshama. And may he channel a lot of brachas to his family for all that they need and all they want, and have a lot of nachas, and to his wife and his grandchildren, much bracha, mazel, and only good things. And good things to all of us, especially to Chaim Avadia and all his friends. Gewalt. Also, we have with us, I don't want to blame Heshi for the fires, but my dear son and daughter-in-law, who are the second biggest story this year, besides the fires, were they lighting the menorah in Fairbanks, Alaska. I think that's the biggest story. And in the ice of Fairbanks, Alaska, they're the new shluchim, and they came here to Los Angeles to warm up a little bit, to de-ice. I think they overdid it in honor of them. They lit the fires over here to make sure. That's exactly when they arrived. Not they. So they're not at fault, but okay. Hashem should give them enough warmth, and the holy Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz should add his blessings to their shlichus, so that they should be able to light up their dark corner of the world. If there's ever a dark corner of the world, their dark corner of the world should be lit up by all the light that they're bringing over there to Fairbanks. What's going on over here? I think when they make an event, they have more people in Fairbanks, Alaska, than we're having over here on Mayan Yisrael. What's going on over here? What's going on with the La Brea community? That's because they just have no clue what's going on over here. They just don't understand. It's the only place where the tzaddikim come visit. Where else do they come? That's why Yisrael Hecht comes here. First days for the tzaddikim. This is where we invite them. This is their nest. This is their holy nest. This is where they come. So here's a share with you a gewaldige story. One of the great colleagues of Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz was the great Michal of Zlochev. They were both students of the holy Baal Shem Tov. It says even that the three students of the Baal Shem Tov that inherited the Baal Shem Tov's qualities. Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz was only 35 years when the Baal Shem Tov passed away. He was pretty young. And according to the tradition, he was only by the Baal Shem Tov 3 times. So it was, and it's amazing how these tzaddikim were able to download the Baal Shem Tov. In 2 or 3 visits, they were able to download. So the Pinchas of Koritz received, they say that the 3 students who inherited the Baal Shem Tov were as follows. The holy Maggid, of course, the great Rebbe, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. He received the Torah of the holy Baal Shem Tov. He received the holy Baal Shem Tov's Torah. The holiness of the Baal Shem Tov, the Kedusha, the holiness of the Baal Shem Tov, was downloaded to the Michal of Zlochev, and the wisdom of the Baal Shem Tov, the Chachma of the Baal Shem Tov, went to the Pinchas of Koritz. Before the Baal Shem Tov passed away, one of his students, his name was, I think, Reb David from Ostra. Reb David of Ostra asked the holy Baal Shem Tov, who should we go to after you pass away? Who should we go to? So he said, I left over 2, he said. I left over a bear, a dove, bayar in the forest, referring to the dove bear. I left a bear in the forest, referring to the dove bear, the holy Mizrach Maggid, and a chacham Pinchas. And I left over a wise man, Pinchas. So these were right? So the Michal was actually one of the good buddies of the Pinchas, but even though they were good buddies, they didn't always get along so well. They had different styles of serving Hashem, different drachim, different ways. The Michal was fire. Fire in a way that you can see his fire. He was fire, and as we did last year, we spoke about Michal of Zlochev. He was the first Rebbe who broke all the laws of Shulchan Aruch. he was the one who taught the Chasidim to daven 5 o'clock in the afternoon Shachris. This was Rav Michal of Zlotchev. He was completely on Pinchas was one who stuck to the boundaries, to the laws. And Pinchas also would keep all the fire inside. He was very contained and very, 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 very much. He would go into the highest levels of dveikus, such levels of dveikus that were impossible even to understand. But you wouldn't see emotion when he would daven. He would daven completely be his pashtus agashmias, which means he would completely divest himself from his body to the point that he literally wasn't in a physical body. But yet you couldn't tell anything. He would sit motionless. And he once explained that there are 2 ways, it says in the Gemara, that in Neshama, when people die, wicked people or tzaddikim, when people leave the world, there are 2 ways. One way, the Gemara says, is like pulling cotton out of a tree. When cotton gets caught in the brush, in a thorn place, you imagine having to try to unpry the cotton from it. It's very, very difficult. You have to pull it, and it rips, and it's painful even just to think how painful it is for the cotton. That's what it says when the wicked, when they die, their soul leaving the body is like pulling something, because it's explained they're so entrenched in materialism. So when their soul has to leave, it gets ripped and torn and wounded as it's being pulled out of the body. But by tzaddikim, it says when their souls go out of their body, it's like pulling a hair out of milk. And the hair, it doesn't make anything, nothing. It's smooth, pulling a hair out of milk. So that's how Pinchas explained when they asked him, how does he daven without emotion? He says, well, the neshama goes out of the body. It's like a hair being pulled out of milk, with such simplicity, without noise. So this tzaddikim, they behave very differently. Their avodah is very differently. Their gewalt, since tonight I didn't write notes, so I'm going to be all over the place. So Rabbi Melaveh of Lezensk once said that seeing Reb Pinchas of Koritz, the holy Rabbi Melaveh of Lezensk once said that seeing Reb Pinchas of Koritz is a segula for Yirah Shamayim. It's a merit for God, for being God-fearing. Just seeing him, it implants fear of God in a person. So his son, Rebbe Lazar, the great son of Rabbi Melaveh of Lezensk, said his father mentioned that. So he told his father he wants to go see Reb Pinchas. And he left and he went to Reb Pinchas. When he came to Reb Pinchas' table, he was a guest there. And Reb Melech also was also more of an expressed tzaddik. The tzaddikim of Poland in general, they would reveal their energy, their love for. I used to watch the Kloisemer Rebbe daven. It was something to see, and I wish I would be able to see this again. But you can hear him. There's recordings of it. There's probably videos of it. He would sit, the tzaddik, the Kloisemer Rebbe, who was an incredible tzaddik in our days, and when he would daven, you would hear him. He would talk with Hashem in Yiddish. In the middle of davening, in the middle of Birchas Kriya Shema, he would talk, and he would talk like to Hashem, like he's talking to a little boy talking to his father. He would go a bunch of times and he would say, "Oi tate," and he would smack his hand, and he would yell, and he would say, and he would literally have conversations, and he would be on. He would go hours and hours, and you would see like a little boy talking to his Father of heaven, and the halachic restrictions of where you're allowed to talk almost didn't apply to him because he was in a different world, and he literally would converse with the Eibishter. He would repeat words, psukim, again and again and again. He'd go back to the beginning of the pasuk, and then in the end, and speak out in the middle, and speak. It was amazing. So Rabbi Melaveh of Lezensk had that espashtos. He would. But Reb Pinchas, as we said, was very, very more like the Chabad style Rabbeim. They didn't show that kind of external type of islavos. Anyway, so he was sitting once, and he said, the son of Rabbi Melech's son, you can imagine what a big tzaddik, he expressed himself, and he said, "Oi tata." That's what he said, referring to Oi Father in heaven. So Reb Pinchas turned to him, and he said these words, "Dil Melaveh avivhu." Maybe he's not his father. It's a Gemara in Masechtas Chulin. The Gemara says in Masechtas Chulin, there's a Gemara where there's a question if this person is really his father. How can you? I don't know I didn't get a chance to look up the Gemara, so you have to ask my son-in-law, Rabbi Zirkin. He's not here right now. What's the Gemara? But the Gemara says, Dil Melaveh, maybe Oisev es Benoy, Yossi says, Masechtas Chulin, that's Yossi's Masechta. So you think we are playing a Casio player for the Pinchas over here? This is one of the tzaddikim that just revealed himself over here. See, now we just found out that Yossi knows Shas. See, everything happens in Mayan by surprises. You don't know. See, but he let his guard down for a second. Any case, the Gemara says, Dil Melaveh, maybe he's not his father. So the Pinchas basically looked at him and says, you tat in Himmel, maybe he's not your father. Meaning, maybe you're not so high and so close that you can consider Hashem your father. And he didn't answer. He took it like, whoa. He was silenced. When he came back to Rabbi Melech, and he repeated the story, Melech asked him what happened, and he told. And he repeated this part also, that Rabbi Pinchas said to him, maybe Dilma Lavavivi, maybe he's not his father. So he said, well, did you answer him? He said, no. He says, you should have answered him. The pasuk says, Gavald, Rabbi Melech says, Sha'ala vicha veyagetcha. Simply it means, ask your father and he will tell you. Ask, if you don't know, ask your father and he will tell you. But Rabbi Melech says, Sha'al doesn't only mean ask, it also means borrow. So he said, you should have said, She'ela vicha, amol daf men sich borgen ataten. A lot of times if a person finds himself in a situation that you don't have a hammer, what do? You need to fix something. You need to knock in a nail. You don't have a hammer. What do? You go to your neighbor and you borrow a hammer. Sometimes if you're feeling a little distant from God and you don't feel that God is your loving father, so you can borrow yourself a father, meaning you borrow Hashem as your father. Which means it's okay sometimes to leap to levels that are beyond you and reach out and call Hashem Father, even if you're not really in that level of that consciousness. But that was Rabbi Melech gave borg zachatata, she'ela vicha, she'ala vicha, borg zachatata. Wow. In any case, so going back to the thing, so Rabbi Michal of Zlochev and Rabbi Pinchas had different styles. Now, one time it came to the attention of the great tzaddik, Rabbi Michal of Zlochev, that there is a city where, a Jewish town, where the people are sinning. The people are misbehaving. So Rabbi Michal of Zlochev decided to send a magid, a mochiach, a magid that he should go speak to the people and awaken them to do tshuva. So who did he choose? He chose a very big tzaddik whose yahrzeit is in the month of Teves. I'm happy. There's a lot of stories which relate to this tzaddik, which I always wanted to do a Melaveh Malka for this tzaddik, but I actually didn't have enough stories that I knew, and I figured Yossi would get hoarse singing the whole time. So we needed, so this tzaddik, his name is Reb Leib Moichiach. We were at his grave. He is buried next to the Toldos Yaakov Yosef. There's a Reb Leib Moichiach, and there's a third person who's between the two, and it's a whole story how this third person got himself in between the two. Reb Leib Moichiach was from the big students of the Baal Shem Tov, and he's called Moichiach because he knew how to rebuke people. And so the Michal of Zlochev sent this Reb Leib Moichiach to this town to set the town straight, to awaken them to do tshuva. When Reb Pinchas of Koritz heard that this, and by the way, you'll hear amazing stories of Reb Pinchas with this Reb Leib Moichiach. They were tight like this. But when Reb Pinchas of Koritz heard that Reb Michal Zlochev sent Reb Leib Moichiach to come and rebuke the people in the town, he said, oh no, not in my neighborhood. This was his neighborhood. He said, in this area, we don't have any Musar sayers. There's no Moichichim over here. And I don't care if they're Misnagdim or Chasidim. No Musar people who are going to give Musar to people are allowed to be in my vicinity. Because he said, if you want to give Musar, you can go give the Eibishter Musar. You can go give God Musar. How come he doesn't bring Mashiach? That's what Rav Pinchas said. If you want to give Musar, instead of giving Musar, instead of rebuking the Jewish people, you can rebuke God why he didn't send Mashiach. That's the reason why people misbehave and they sin, because we're sitting so long in exile. That's classic Baal Shem Tov, right? Classic Baal Shem Tov. Rav Pinchas is a student of the Baal Shem Tov. He doesn't want any Musar. So Reb Leib Moichiach goes back to Reb Michal of Zlochev, and he tells Reb Michal of Zlochev, this is what Reb Pinchas said. Reb Pinchas said that he's going to stop me, that he's vetoing your mission, and he's not letting me say Musar over here to the community to speak. So the Michal is thinking, and the Michal said, I'm a big wonder, I'm wondering, how is it that whenever I pray, all the prayers in the entire world have to go through me? All the prayers of all the Jewish people, they go through. I guess Rabbi Michal knew that he was the tzaddik Yesod Olam. He was the great tzaddik, and he elevates all the prayers. And he says, I wonder how come Rabbi Pinchas's prayers are I never receive Rabbi Pinchas's prayers. They're never being channeled to me that I should uplift them. So Rabbi Leib Mechiach went back to the Pinchas, and he said to him, Rabbi Michal is saying that he never receives your prayers. How come your tefillahs are never? So the Pinchas said, when someone davens with complete mesiras nefesh, which means when a person prays with absolute self-sacrifice, that he gives himself completely over for the Jewish people, with total mesiras nefesh, then his prayer goes directly up to atzmus mahus, which means that his prayer goes directly up to the very essence of God, and it doesn't need any malachim, it doesn't need any mediators, it doesn't need any even tzaddikim to lift it up. So Reb Leib Mechiach comes back to the Michal, and he says to the Michal's Lotchever, this is what Reb Pinchas said. So the Michal was impressed. He didn't have such a high opinion of Reb Pinchas until that time. So he wanted to check it out if it really is that way. He said, he's saying that, but is it really that way? So he did what Lubavitchers do these days. He consulted the Igris. People who think that opening a book and finding an answer is a modern day trick that the Lubavitchers were the ones who invented after Gimel Tammuz, that you open up a letter, should know that the biggest tzaddikim used it. So the Michal of Zlotchev allowed his holy body to walk to the bookshelf, and he allowed his holy body to move and pick a book without choosing. He stuck his hand in the bookshelf and pulled out a book, and he pulled out a Yalkut Shimoni. He opened it up, the Yalkut Shimoni, and the Yalkut Shimoni opened up to the pasuk Vayamoid Pinchas. In Tehillim it says a pasuk Vayamoid Pinchas Vayafalel, and Pinchas stood up and he davened. Vayamoid Melamed, the Targum says Melamed she'asa Pinchas pilulim im HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Pinchas made arguments. Pilulim means like din Torah, made arguments with the Eibishter himself. That was what he opened up to. So he said, but he wasn't sure. Like sometimes Lubavitchers as well, they open the Igris and they're not sure if they got the answer. So he decided to try a second book. So he again stuck his hand in and opened the book. This time he opened the Gemara. And the Gemara was the exact same Maimer Chazal as in the Gemara. The Gemara also says it's the Yalkut is a Yalkut of is Midrashim. So the same Midrashic teaching is also in Gemara. Maybe Yossi knows where. But the Gemara also says the exact same thing. Vayamoid Pinchas Vayafalel. That Pinchas. So the Michal then saw that the Pinchas of Koritz, when he davens, his davening is with total mesiras nefesh for the Jewish people on that level. So we also know that Pinchas was the one who stopped the Magefa. Pinchas, the original Pinchas. Pinchas, the first Pinchas, was the one who stopped the Magefa. So that's the reason we invited the Pinchas of Koritz to spend some time with us this Matzah Shabbos, maybe to be the ultimate helicopter that drops the waters, to put out the fires, and to save everyone, that there shouldn't be any, definitely not any more damage to any Yid anywhere in Los Angeles, or to any Nechasim, or any even hair of a hair of a hair. So l'chaim and l'bracha. L'chaim.
Ah
Chaim, we want to wish a very, 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 hold on, where is he? We want to wish a very happy birthday to Moshe Teitelbaum. Tonight is the birthday of Moshe. Moshe, bless us all, Moshe. Geb ha-bracha for alle von uns. All good. Kol tov, he says. Alle good. L'chaim. L'chaim. Ashnas bracha and atzlacha to you, Moshe. All you need, all you want, and only the best. So we just sang, one of the nigunim that we just sang was a nigin from, one of the nigin we just sang was the niggin of the Shpala Zayde, Kol Bayar Anoichi Shemea, which triggered in my head a story of the holy Shpala Zayde with Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. Shpala Zayde said that the worst thing you can possibly have is to get fame and to become like a very, 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 very public figure. That ruins everything, he said. And he says, I'll tell you why. He says, a long, long time ago, when no one knew that he was, above the average person, just a regular person. I was dressed in the clothing of a pauper, and I walked around amongst all the beggars that were collecting, and I too was collecting. And I came to the city, to the Pinchas of Koritz, wherever he was at that time, as we're going to see soon. We'll speak a little bit about his life, where he moved around. But I came to the town where he was. And at that time, Rabbi Pinchas was making a simcha. There was some kind of a family simcha. Maybe it was a wedding for one of his children. And they used to make what was called a poor man's party. Those who would make a big wedding, they would make they would make a poor man's party the night before. It was called some Hasidic circles still have that custom. In Chernobyl, I think there is such a custom, to make a poor man's party the night before you make the big festivities. You make a party for all the people who generally, that they need to be given a meal. They're hungry. So I was amongst those people. The Pinchas was walking around, and when he saw me, he came over to me, and he was very excited to see me, and he was mekar of me very much, and he got so excited at a certain point that he grabbed me and he kissed me on my forehead. And this was back then when I came as a poor man. No, a few years later, and I started getting already recognition, and as a result of that, I became a rabbi. And I'm wearing already a rabbinic pelts. The Chassidic rabbis would wear a fur thing around their thing. And so I came again to the Pinchas of Koritz, and I knocked on the door, already wearing my white socks, like a big Rebbe. And he came to the door, and he looked, and he didn't even recognize me. And I left I thought for sure he would say, there's the part, remember the one I kissed you, and then I recognized you already then? Garnished. He didn't even give him a wink of an eye, he said. So he said, you see, the worst thing is publicity. He says, when no one knows you, and garnished, and you're quiet in the corner, it's very good. That was the Shpala Zayde saying his and that's the Chiddush of the Rebbe. The Rebbe wants us to have Mesiras Nefesh, and to do what we need to do, even if it brings us publicity. That's the Rebbe wants us to have Mesiras Nefesh. In any case, let me share with you another Gavaldige story. This one, since I mentioned Rabbi Leib Mochiach, whose yahrzeit is in the month of Teves. As I mentioned, I always wanted to do a Melaveh Malka for him. He's buried together with the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, because they're both, the Leib Mochiach is from Pulna. So if you went to the Toldos is Tzion, oil, then together with him is Rabbi Leib Mochiach. So it's very interesting. When Pinchas, when he was a young man, he was a huge tzaddik, but he was very, very hidden, and no one really knew. So much so, he was very withdrawn. He didn't speak to people, to the point that people thought that he was a mute. They thought that he was literally that a shtimer. He couldn't talk. That's what they thought. But they see he would learn and stuff like that, but no one really communicated with him. He was like a loner. He was a real loner. Now, let me tell you the Akdama of the story. The Akdama of the story was that Rabbi Pinchas Koritz's grandchildren became pretty wealthy. They owned the big press. Ramosha of Slavita, who was the one who printed the Tanya, after Rabbi Pinchas passed away, his son Ramosha became a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, would travel to the Alter Rebbe all the time, Ramosha of Slavita. And he was the one who printed the Tanya, and there's a famous story of him with getting the permits to print the Tanya. It was with Ramosha of Slavita. Maybe Rabbi Hecht will tell you one day the story. He told it to us already. Famous story of the Alter Rebbe with Ramosha of Slavita, who's the student, who's the son of Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. The grandchildren were the famous with two children who were accused with a libel, and they were in a Russian jail for a long time, and they suffered enormous torture and who knows what. And there's a famous story about the grandchildren of the Pinchas. But the family got a pretty good business going, and therefore they had money. So one of the grandchildren used to be a pretty big Baal tzedakah, and he would give money to various different, whoever would come, whatever, but especially if you were a grandson of a tzaddik, and you could come with your yichus, so on and so forth. But was one person who came to him, and he sees an enikel of Rabbi Leib Moichiach of Pulna. The enikel got very, very excited, the grandson, and he wrote him a very big check. And he said, because we know in our family that if not for your grandfather, Voltemira Tatanishkahat, if not for your grandfather, we would not have a father. What's the story? It's an unbelievable story. The story is like this, that this Rabbi Pinchas, when he was alone and quiet, I don't know if he was married, if he was a bacher still, but he was very, very much kept himself, did his own thing. And he became friends, however, to Rabbi Leib. Rabbi Leib of Pulna, he took him under his wing. They got close to each other. And Rabbi Leib used to have, in whichever city, maybe it was in Pulna, I'm not sure which city it was, Rabbi Leib had his own, there was a mikveh there, a merchatz, a mikveh, where the people would go to the mikveh. But this Rabbi Leib, because he was special, had special status, he had his own private mikveh. I think it was like in a side room off the main mikveh, he had his own private mikveh that was his. He would allow always Rabbi Pinchas, there used to be a mikveh shamish. The mikveh shamish is the guy who's in charge of the mikveh, that no one should come in without paying. You have to pay for the mikveh fee. But in addition to that, at certain times the mikveh is closed. You can't go to the mikveh. But Rabbi Pinchas would always have access because Rabbi Leib Machiach told the shamus in charge of the mikveh, the guard, that he should let Rabbi Pinchas use his private mikveh whenever he wants. So one time, Rabbi Pinchas was right in the middle of the night, middle chatzos, right after midnight. Rabbi Pinchas starting his day very early, day of serving Hashem, and he wanted to go dip in the mikveh. He came, and the shamus was there, but the shamus didn't want to let him in. Why didn't he want to let him in? Because in the room, the dressing room that was off where the mikveh was, that day he put some chickens over there. Whatever. And he didn't want him to go in there now. He had chickens, he opened the door, they'll run out. I don't know. He got some extra chickens that he had to put them somewhere. So he put them in that room there. So he tells him no. So Pinchas gets a no, but he really, really wants to go to the mikveh, so he's not going to give up. So he climbs on the roof, and he was able to move the slats on the roof and create for himself a little thing to go in. And he managed to climb in from the roof into the thing, and he toveled in the mikveh. And then he had the only way out, because the door was locked with an outside lock. He couldn't even leave. He had to climb back up and go out. So he climbs out from the crack again. And as he's jumping down on the other side, I guess from the pressure maybe of when he jumped or something, the beam that was on the roof that he kind of was loose, maybe that's why he was able to move it to the side, got tilted and fell down and fell on top of him. As he landed, it fell on top, and it was a thick beam, and literally it killed him. And Pinchas was laying on the side, no one knew, thump, and he was laying on the side of the mikveh, and he wasn't alive. Reb Leib Mechiach woke up in the middle of the night, and he sent his shamus he said, I hear a commotion outside. Go check what's happening. The shamus goes out, and the night is as quiet, still. You don't hear a thing. There's no commotion. Comes back, and he tells him, what are you talking about? It's quiet outside. So he says, no, go outside. I hear a big noise. I hear a noise. So he goes out a second time, and he comes back. He says, it's quiet. Okay. So they waited, so nothing. So stop it. In the morning, people were coming to the mikveh, the regular mikveh people coming to the morning. They see the Melamed, Pinchas was a Melamed, that's what he was. The Melamed in the town is laying over there and bleeding, and they took a look and they saw that the guy is lifeless. So there became a commotion in the town. And word got to Reb Leib Mechiach that the Melamed is not alive. So Reb Leib came running right away, and he warned everybody not to touch his body, to leave Reb Pinchas' body exactly as it is, and they shouldn't move the body at all. Reb Leib went into the shul, he took out a Tehillim, and he started davening, and he started crying. And he said to the Eibishter, I love the words. I don't want to misquote it. Hold it. I'm going to find it over here because I wrote this down for myself. I said I didn't write much notes, but I did. Give me a second over here. He said these words. He said, Eibishter, he said, Rabbi Shalom, he said, Geb him tzaddik sein neshama. Give him back his soul, he said, and he should live. He said, Du wirst mich noch danken for them. This is what he said. He said for the Eibishter, you're going to thank me for this advice that I'm giving you, to give his soul. I'm telling you, he's a Yireh Shamayim, he fears God, and he's a tzaddik. He fears God and he's a tzaddik. He said, I like the way he said to the Eibishter, you're still going to thank me for this. Then he went back out, and he comes to the Pinchas who's on the floor, and he said, Pinchasel, steh auf, get up, und geh lernen mit the Talmidim. Go learn what your classroom is waiting. Class, it's time already. 9 o'clock, the kids are in class. They're waiting. Stop wasting time over here, he said. Du bist doch aschir yoim. You're hired for the day. So now it's time and ready to go to work. Work has come. And then the Pinchas got up, and that's the story. So the Eineklach have always said that the life of the Pinchas of Koritz is thanks to the Leib Mechiach, whose yahrzeit is in Teves, so maybe his chus. If anybody needs any internal resurrection, and we're going to hopefully, if we get resurrected internally, the Pinchas of Koritz said, it reminds me right now, he said, there are signs. How do you know if you're depressed? What are the signs? Sometimes people are depressed, they don't know it. He says, someone who has Mother Shchayda, he says, the sign of it is they don't have a desire to go up to Eretz Yisrael. Interesting. If you're not depressed and you want to go, have a shtoikekus, you have a desire to go to Eretz Yisrael, you don't want to learn Zohar. I guess I'll translate it today. You're not excited to learn Chassidus. Because Chassidus is, you don't find that excitement. And even if you're learning Zohar, he says, but it's without, you do it because you have to, and not with an excitement, is a sign that you're depressed. And the third one, I forgot. But these are the three signs that he said for Mother Shchayra. In any case, l'chaim on the bracha. Yossi agute nigen. L'chaim. Today we have another birthday boy here tonight, Reb Shalom. Who's the third? Rabbi Reichik. Betzalel. Wow! Tonight is Betzalel's birthday. And that's the reason why we have the Melaveh Malka for Reb Pinchas of Koritz. Because my favorite Sukkah story is Reb Pinchas of Koritz, Betzalel's story. I was going to say it still, but wait a while. Wow, happy birthday, Betzalel. time. He fears Hashem and he's Chaim. Chaim and the bracha. Chaim and the bracha. So, for the Chabad crowd, I want to share with you that the famous mashal of Chassidus, that is at the core root of Chassidism, was said to Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz to calm Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. Famous story. As we mentioned, when the Baal Shem Tov passed away, the great students of the Baal Shem Tov were the Maggid of Mezrich, Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz, Rabbi Michal of Zlochev. These were the giants. The Maggid, however, became the official successor. And all this and many students came to the Maggid, but the Maggid's approach to Avodas Hashem was very different than Reb Pinchas's approach to Avodas Hashem. Reb Pinchas believed that the way you open up godliness in your soul is by rigorous work to eradicate all the negative traits. Reb Pinchas was the utmost of a person who worked on himself to chase out every bit of darkness from his soul. Primarily, he was incredible when it came to emes, truth. Reb Pinchas was the epitome of emes la'amitai, truth of truth. He could not stand sheker, lies. Anything that wasn't sincere and real, he couldn't stand shtick. Even the tiniest bit of shtick was out the door from him. Like the concept, you see a lot of Chabad got that we don't like, that the notion of shtick is like feh. Pinchas was very much anti-shtick because he was fully emes. If it's not real, that everything should reflect the ultimate sincerity and truth of who you are and what you are. Reb Pinchas said to the Alter Rebbe once, Pinchas said to the Alter Rebbe, 7 years I worked and I toiled to identify what's considered sheker, lies. In other words, to detect what's not emes, what there is still lie, to be able to see falsehood. I worked 7 years in order to be able to get a proper sensitivity to detect what's insincere, what's not real, and what's, even in a very slight way, Yossi, if you mind taking away those, take away those boxes because yeah, Yossi, on the floor is good. Shkoyach, okay. Shkoyach. So, he didn't, 7 years I worked to identify falsehood. 7 years I worked to eradicate falsehood, that I shouldn't even have any bit of, first I had to identify it. Took me 7 years, imagine a person, 7 years concentrating of being able to work, to be able to find even the nidnud of sheker. Then I worked on expelling all that sheker for 7 years. And then 7 years I worked to draw in the emes, the truth. To be able to be la'avdecha be'emes, to serve God truthfully. When the Alter Rebbe heard this, the Alter Rebbe said that avodah is an avodah from malachim. for very, very holy people is the avodah of first fighting and identifying and flushing out every bit of ra, every bit of wickedness, and then bringing in the good. The Alter Rebbe said, but the derech that works for most people is the derech of learning the emes, being taught emes, revealing to students truth, the truth of godliness, revealing to a yid the emes of elokus, and you start taking an emes, automatically the sheker will fall away. In other words, is the approach sur me'rav asei tov, turning away from evil and then doing good, or the work starts with asei tov. Do good, illuminate yourself with goodness, and then we'll come. Just reminding me that the Pinchas once said, I forgot already how long he worked on it. Should be bilti Hashem, only for Hashem. But then he had to work so many more years, and he said how many years it was, that it should be levadoi. This bilti Hashem means only for God. Levadoi means exclusively. So what it means, in order that it should be only for God exclusively, in that, now that the derech of the Alter Rebbe, that you ride into a Chassidus doesn't wait till you become the biggest tzaddik and then it starts teaching you Chassidus. Chassidus immediately downloads godliness into your soul. You right away are taught the most beautiful, deepest, godliest teachings, and hopefully our avodah is that we internalize it and the klipa melts away from Hashem, kihimas doineg mipnei eish, like wax melts away in front of fire. The Alter Rebbe really received that from the Maggid. The Maggid's approach was to give Chassidus, to teach even for people who are not that perfect yet or that holy yet, and the avodah of illuminating and bringing light will eventually chase away the darkness. So, in this vein, the Mezritcher Maggid used to teach Chassidus, used to teach mysticism, Chassidic teachings, which is not just mysticism, it's not just Kabbalah, it's pure godliness. The Rabbi Dov Ber, the Holy Maggid, would teach it in a very expansive way. Rabbi Pinchas would only teach Divrei Elokim Chayim, only give over Chassidus for people that he knew were ready, were a very, very lofty level. He was very, very careful, very careful. One time, Rabbi Pinchas came to visit his friend, the Maggid. See, Rabbi Pinchas was not a student of the Maggid. He was a colleague of the Maggid. He came to visit the Holy Maggid, and the Alter Rebbe was there, and the Talmidim were all there in the room. And Rabbi Pinchas went out to the outhouse. Outside of the Beis HaMedrash, there was a place, right, a bathroom. And he went out over there. Then he came back, and I think he filled the cup up for the Tilas Yadayim to wash his holy hands. And as he was holding the cup, or I think he started saying the bracha of Asher Yotzar. Maybe he washed his hands and he started saying Asher Yotzar. There was a wind that came. And the wind blew a paper. And the paper was fluttering and it flew next to Rabbi Pinchas, was on the floor. And Rabbi Pinchas can see that it was a paper with Torah writing. So he bent down and he picked it up. And he took one look and he saw that the paper was someone's writing of deep holy Chassidus that he heard from the Holy Maggid. And Rabbi Pinchas, the Alter Rebbe was standing by the window, and he saw Rabbi Pinchas's face when he picked up that paper. And the Alter Rebbe saw that Rabbi Pinchas is having a kapeda, that Chassidus, which is so holy, because it's being spread in such an openness. In those days, Chassidus wasn't put on YouTube like it is today. And it goes, B'chol katzvei tevel. This is already the Alter Rebbe's chiddush, the Rebbe's chiddush, that it should get out everywhere. In those days, these holy, holy teachings were very scarce and treated with an enormous, enormous holiness to be careful not that it should get. But here he sees that a page, and the fact that this page ended up outside in the wind on the floor was a physical indication on the concept that the Magid is not being careful, and he's teaching Chassidus in such an expansive way that there can be. The lashon that they used was tishtapechna avnei kodesh beroish kol chutzos. It's a pasuk in Eicha, in Lamentations, where it says that the holy stones are being spilled out outside everywhere. And that's part of the kinnis of Tisha B'Av. So Reb Pinchas was upset. When the Alter Rebbe saw this, the Alter Rebbe waited till he finished his bracha and went over to him, and immediately he started telling him the story of the king who had a beautiful crown, and a magnificent, the crown was a masterpiece. And the king had one son, the crown prince, and the crown prince got sick. And all the doctors in the world tried to heal him, and no one can heal him, the famous story. And everybody came and they inspected, and finally one doctor came and he said, there is one mineral that can heal this sick prince. Only one mineral that can heal the sick prince. And that mineral is to be found in a certain type of a stone. They looked through the entire kingdom, they couldn't find that stone, but then someone said that the stone that is the stone that's the centerpiece in the king's crown. And therefore, in order to be able to save the prince's life, the only thing that you can do is if you take that stone, and if you grind that stone, and you mix it with water, but then you're going to dissolve, you're going to completely disintegrate and break the king's crown. So it was a big debate. What should they do? They didn't know what to do. No one had the chutzpah to say that you should take the crown jewel of this is the entire kingdom is in the. So they asked the king, what should they do? Because they even told the king that even when they will grind the stone into powder, the king is the prince is so sick that they don't even know if anything will go in, because his mouth is closed. He can't open his mouth normally. He can't swallow. So they don't even know. So probably most of it is just going to get spilled out. But the king, therefore, maybe we shouldn't do it. And the king said, "Why do I need a whole kingdom if I don't have any continuation? If there's my son is not going to live. He's my whole future. So it's worth it to take the crown jewel and ground it up, even on the possibility, even it's a possibility that a little bit will go into the mouth." And this was, of course, analogous to Chassidus, which Chassidus is literally coming, like we're learning in Chassidus, it's coming from Pnimius Atik. It's coming from the innermost of God's crown. That's where the Torah of Chassidus comes from. It's interesting, when Rabbi Pinchas came to the Baal Shem Tov, he recognized right away that the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov is the Torah of Mashiach. And Rabbi Pinchas said that Mashiach will say Torah like the Baal Shem Tov. So he recognized it. He knew what it was. So when he heard this from the Alter Rebbe, he calmed Rabbi Pinchas, and the kitrug went away. So the famous story that we have so many pages of Chassidus explaining this story, the Rebbe talks about it non-stop, about the crown of the king, was said by the Alter Rebbe to Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. This was it. So Rabbi Pinchas helped us bring that mashal. The other story that is famous for Rabbi Pinchas in Chassidus is in Chassidus it's brought, and the Rebbe speaks about it in Kuntris in Yoneh Shel Teres HaChassidus, where the Rebbe explains what is the essence of Chassidus. The entire Kuntris in Yoneh Shel Chassidus begins with a vart of Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. What's the vart? Rabbi Pinchas said that the Jewish people in the time of the Baal Shem Tov were in a state of faint. They were asleep, not just in a sleep, they were in a deep state of faint. And just like when a person faints, in order to wake him up, you call him by his name. And by whispering his name in his ear, that's how he wakes up. You can bring a person out of a deep faint. So Rabbi Pinchas said, in the days in his time, back in Ukraine or in Eastern Europe, in the time of in the 18th century, in the years after, from 1700 to 1800, the Jewish condition was so terrible that the Jewish people were literally in a state of faint. And that's why the Eibishter, God, whispered the name of the Jewish people in our ear by calling us Yisrael. Hashem whispered the neshama of the Baal Shem Tov. That was God's whisper, where Hashem whispered our name to wake us up, and the Baal Shem Tov woke up the Jewish people. So this is stories of Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. So we find that a lot of Chabad Chassidism and a lot of fundamental ideas come from Rabbi Pinchas. Another thing the Alter Rebbe said, that from Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz, he took he took two things. The Alter Rebbe gained from him. The Alter Rebbe was by Pinchas of Koritz a few times. And he gained from him two things. Humility, shiftless. His midas at Alter Rebbe was signed on himself, hashafel be'emes, someone who was truly humble, hashafel be'emes. So the Alter Rebbe took midas hashiftless, of complete humility. He took from Pinchas of Koritz, and the other thing that he took from him was midas ha'emes. Emes, and I think it was the second one, emes and anava and shiftless, he took from Pinchas. He learned from him. These are skills, godly skills, that the biggest tzaddikim are the ones who bring them to the world. And Rabbi Pinchas was one of those who brought these holiest qualities. L'chaim ala bracha. L'chaim.
So it's time to get up a little bit and get some movement, warm-ups.
Heshi. Heshi. Herschel. Thank you. Oh, that was a good rikud. That was a really good rikud. Rikudim. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha. L'chaim. L'chaim, l'chaim. One of the things that I saw today, that got me excited very much about Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz was that Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz saw very much godliness in all the elements of the world. I connected that very much, as you know. You try to interpret everything for its godly content. But Rabbi Pinchas was that way, particularly. There's no sefer from him that he wrote, but there is a lot of Torahs from him. And there is Torahs from him on every element in the world. There's Torahs on him on mountains, on valleys, on trees, on rain, on thunderstorms, on earthquakes, on countries, on Russia, on Germany, on France. Everything by him. In other words, he was very much, he had literally everything in the world was what he set Torah on. In other words, he spoke about the world and its godly content very much. Whatever, that speaks to me just personally. It's up my alley. So I connect very much to that. Another interesting thing was, take a look, the sensitivity of tzaddikim and how silly and ridiculous we are. Just take a look at the sensitivity of tzaddikim. It's unbelievable. Rabbi Pinchas only came to the Baal Shem Tov maybe 3 times. One of the times he came to the Baal Shem Tov was as follows. Listen to the story. He once heard that there was a thunderstorm, a big storm that came, and the storm, because of big waves, literally demolished a city, a coastal city. A coastal city that was literally wiped off the map because of a big storm. And because Rabbi Pinchas was an incredible philosopher, he was an unbelievable, he was a huge chacham, b'chachmas. He knew, his favorite sefer, by the way, was Moreh Nevuchim from the Rambam. And he said that, and the Rambam writes in his Akdama, that maybe one out of 1,000 people will come to the understanding of my book. And Rabbi Pinchas said the 1 out of 1,000 that he meant was me. So Rabbi Pinchas was a great, the Reb Nachum of Chernobyl said about Rabbi Pinchas, ha-philosopha aleki, the God, no, ha-philosopha aleki mimal, like you say, ha-chelek alekai mimal, ha-philosopha, he was a philosopher, a great thinker. And so he had a big knowledge in sciences and so on and so forth. So when he heard the story of the city that was wiped away because of the storm, the fact that this city was a coastal city gave in his mind a little explanation scientifically why this city was destroyed and not another city. Well, of course, like people say, when the fire is over there, can't come in La Brea over here. Why can't they come in La Brea? Because it's 3 miles away from here. And it's not like Pacific Palisades. Pacific Palisades is full of hills and mountains, and there's things, and it's right in the middle, and it's over here, and it's over here. But we're full of vegetation. But we're over here. In other words, our minds right away go with all the rational explanations. So he also explained that town was wiped off the map. He had a thought in his mind because Teves, it's a coastal city, and if there's a storm, so the city that's not mamish on the coast did not get wiped out. And it bothered him so much that he can't get rid of that thought because he's really believing that a city was wiped out because of some natural phenomenon. And he came to the Baal Shem Tov to speak out his heart. And the Baal Shem Tov did whatever he needed to do in order to delete that thought from the Pinchas, that he should be able to live with the purity and sincerity of simple emunah, that if a city was destroyed, it was because God destroyed it, not because of anything else. And he had to be able to lift him up to the purity. For that, someone like Reb Pinchas, who knows Kol HaTorah Kula, and knows all of Shas and Poskim, these people don't realize why you go to a Rebbe. It's like you need to teach you another Teves, another Pirush. It's not where you're going. It's because you want to feel the Eibush there. You want God to be clear in your soul with absolute clarity. And you should experience Ein Oid Movadoi. There's literally nothing but Hashem. And the mind plays all kinds of games. This is because of this, and this is because of that. And to be able to for that he needed the Baal Shem Tov. So even though he was like this, he said that the Baal Shem Tov taught him 3 things, and he taught the Baal Shem Tov 3 things. And he said, the secret of eating, I know just as good as the Baal Shem Tov. So you're talking about someone who really stood shoulder to shoulder with the Holy Baal. His students said, they say about the Arizal, the students of the Baal Shem Tov would say about the Holy Ari, that if all that it is that's written about the Arizal, all the great miracles that the Arizal did, is all that he was, what it says in his books, then we saw from the Baal Shem Tov much more. So a student of the Pinchas said, if all that the Baal Shem Tov was is what it's written in his books, we saw from the Pinchas the same types of miracles and the same types of, like, beyond nature completely, the powers like of godliness that was by him. It was unbelievable. By the way, the closeness of the level of Reb Pinchas to the Baal Shem Tov was that when Reb Pinchas came, the last Pesach, Shvishal Pesach, Reb Pinchas came to Mezhebush for Pesach. There's 2 girsas to the story. I'll tell you this girsa. He arrived late to Mezhebush, and he didn't have a chance to go to the mikveh on Erev Shvishal Pesach. And he saw a vision that the Baal Shem Tov would pass away that year. This was in the year 1760. He's Tov Kuf Chaf. He saw a vision that the Baal Shem Tov was going to pass away. And he tried as hard as he can to be mevatel the gezerah, to annul the decree that he saw that the Baal Shem Tov would pass away. But he couldn't. And he thought to himself, had I gone to the mikveh, and had I had the vision in the mikveh, I could have been poil. The Baal Shem Tov came over to him, and the Baal Shem Tov asked him, were you in the mikveh yesterday? And he said, no. And the Baal Shem Tov said, nu la'achar ha'maisa. It's too late. In other words, the only one that had the ability to help the Baal Shem Tov and save the Baal Shem Tov's life was Reb Pinchas of Koritz. That's who we're talking. But in any case, what was I saying over here? What was I saying before this? Oh yeah, the thought that there was cheshbon al pi teva of why. This is what he came to the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, so I want to share with you, of course, the great and beautiful story that Betzalel would say in our Sukkah every year. The beauty of Betzalel telling the story is every time he told it as if no one ever heard the story. Although we knew that was going to be the story. And I loved inviting Betzalel the first night, Sukkahs, because that's when Betzalel would tell the story of Reb Pinchas of Koritz. So the story goes as follows. Reb Pinchas of Koritz davened to the Eibishter very much, that he felt he was being distracted by people knowing who he was. And as a result of that, his whole story, how people knew who he was, but it started getting out that he's a tzaddik, he's a great man, and a lot of people started coming to him. He really didn't like that. So he prayed to Hashem that people should stop liking him. They should leave him alone. A tzaddik prays, and so is fulfilled. And you know how it is. It doesn't take much for someone to say a lashon hara, and then someone to accept the Lashon Hara, and before you know it, in the coffee room, the guys are making coffee, they're davening, they say, Pinchas this, that, they say he's a tzaddik, he's really this, he's that. Before you know, no one wanted to have anything to do with him. He became the black sheep. No one, literally, people didn't like him, and he was so happy because people stopped coming to him, and he lived himself happily, being able to serve Hashem. Came before Sukkahs, and he needed to build a Sukkah. Now, it used to be in all the years before that, when people were really his friends and everybody loved him, and they knew he's a big tzaddik and a big rabbi, and he does it. And as a rabbi, he doesn't really know how to build himself anything. What does he know? A rabbi doesn't know how to. I laugh always on Erev Sukkahs. I always laugh on Erev Sukkahs. You see rabbis in Home Depot, and it's very funny to see before Pesach and before Sukkahs. They have no idea what a 2x4 is. I don't either. I just know that the little. In any case, how to hold a hammer, which way, how to. So he didn't either know. So, but no one came to help him. The years before, people used to help him build a sukkah. This year, no one came. And Rabbi Pinchas had to build his sukkah. He didn't have even anything. He was so poor. He had to go to a neighbor, and then no one wanted to lend him even wood. No one. Everybody said, "God, they shut the door on him. You get out of here." Door after door, he was alone. He tried. I can't tell the story like Betzalel, even though I heard it from him so many times. Maybe I wasn't paying attention because I thought I heard the story already. Now I regret. I should have listened every time to how Betzalel told the story. But in any case, he would ask for people for a piece of wood, and the people shut the door. No one wanted to give him a hammer. No one. So he had to go to the dump of the city, find a few scraps of wood, and he put together a rickety sukkah. The Kam was able to stand. He got himself a little schach. But he was a big Talmud Chacham, a huge Talmud Chacham. He knew it was kosher. He was able to make it sturdy enough that it was kosher. And then he went to shul. And then he was pretty poor, but still, there's always people that are poorer than you. So he wanted to invite some guests, that some people should come to him to Sukkah, because we know it's very special that on Yom Tov you're supposed to have guests. So he saw a Yid, and he asked him to come, and the guy said, "To you? Why would I go to your Sukkah?" So he didn't want to go, and this was like an insult coming from the poorest of the poor. And this one said, "Yeah, why would I go to you? Your wife, whatever, your wife's food isn't good, and this and that, and we're not going." And everybody rejected him. So he came home alone. Okay. This is the price he's got to pay for being not liked. He comes home at Sukkot by night, and he's standing, and he's ready to go into his sukkah. And when he goes into his sukkah, the minhag by Chassidism all over is you say a special nusach of the Zohar in which you invite the Yishpizin. Ilu Yishpizin Ilah, I remember the nusach of my father, Tuvi Yishpizin Ilah, sit down, TV, my father, which I always think about TV. It was TV, it's Tuvi, I think it is in the Lashon, but my father talks a Polish or Yiddish, so he says TV, Yishpizin Ilah, right? I was wondering, what's the TV have to do in the sukkah? But in any case, TV means sit down, holy Yishpizin, come sit down at my sukkah. It's a certain nusach of the Zohar that you invite the Yishpizin. So he's saying it, and he sees suddenly Avram Avinu standing by the door, and Avram is not coming in. So he says, "Avram, come arayin." Avram is not coming in. And he says, "Avram, why not?" He says, "How can I go into a sukkah where there's no guest?" Sukkah. Avram Avinu was always having guests in his house. So how can I go into a sukkah where there's no guest? So I'm not going. So Avram declined the invitation, and Avram didn't come into a sukkah. So Rabbi Pinchas had to sit that sukkah alone, and then he realized that he's making a big mistake in the service of Hashem. He's thinking that it's better to serve Hashem, without people bothering you, being alone, being able to meditate. And he realized that Hashem probably enjoys it much better when you're trying to daven, and this one is bothering you about this, and this one needs you to daven for this, and this one is kratzing you over here. And with all the distractions and with all these things, that's the way God wants you to serve Hashem. And that was when Rabbi Pinchas changed his entire method, and he became a Rebbe, and he helped thousands of people, and he healed them, and with all the inyanim, because he was taught that lesson from Avram Avinu. Since we mentioned how Avram Avinu was once his guest, and how he was able to, or was supposed to be his guest. But looks like all the other years, Avram Avinu, he can actually see Avram Avinu in his sukkah. Although Avram Avinu comes to our sukkah as well, not necessarily we see him. But the holy Rabbi Pinchas was able to see the holy Yishpizin. When he moved he moved from the city of Koritz, because there was a shtickle machlokes over there. actually with the Michaelov's Lachivs, Chassidism. It was a whole situation going on. It was politics, like there is today. People think that politics started now. The politics were going on then as well. And Pinchas of Koritz had to leave the town of Koritz, and he moved to the city of Ostra. Ostra is a big city. For those who go to Ukraine, that's where the Marsha is buried. We were in that cemetery. Very big tzaddikim lived in Ostra. And the Marsha, there's an old shul of the Holy Marsha in Ostra. Even rhymes, Marsha and Ostra. In any case, Reb Pinchas moved to that city. In that city, there was another Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, a very big tzaddik called Rabbi. And but now there were 2 tzaddikim there, and maybe there were a few more. And the simple people in the town were so excited about these tzaddikim, and they would always visit them. And the simple people would always bring food, and this one brought fish, and this one brought flesh, and this one brought chalas, and this one came in with donuts. Everybody was bringing to be by the tzaddik, by his table. And so the way it was that Reb Pinchas lived further up in the street, and Rabbi lived in the beginning of the street. So the way it was is that the people would come, the simple people that would come to the tzaddikim, they would first stop by Rabbi, and they would deliver the goods to him, and then they would continue on, and it was like the second stop was Reb Pinchas. One time it was on Purim, and the Chassidim were coming, and Rabbi was holding a middle davening. He was davening very long, and they were knocking on the door. He didn't hear them because he was deep in his davening. He didn't hear them. So they saw no party by Rabbi, so they skipped Rabbi, and they went to Pinchas. Pinchas was already ready to party. So they came to him, and they sat by him, and there was a big farbrengen going on, and more people came, and they were bringing food, and it was a Purim party. It was so freilach, it was beautiful. Rabbi finished davening. He was a poor man, and usually the only food that he would get is the shalach manisin and the foods that the neighbors and the friends and the simple yidden would come and they would bring. And this year, everything went to the Pinchas. Nothing was by him. So he was sitting there alone, and it was Purim, and he wasn't too happy. But this was that. Suddenly, an elderly person arrived, and this elderly person comes to Rabbi Abi, sits down, and he says, "No, can I be your guest?" He says, "You can be my guest, but all I have is a little bread." He says, "For me, bread itself is good enough. For me, bread is good enough." And suddenly, this elderly person takes out a fiddle, and he starts playing the fiddle, and he's playing and singing such happy songs, and the music is going out onto the street, and people are hearing, and Rabbi Pinchas not living so far by, the windows were open, the people hear, so 1 or 2 people trickled out, they wanted to hear this beautiful music, so they came, and they followed, it was to Rabbi Abi's house, so they came, and then more people came, and more, before you knew it, Rabbi Pinchas is looking, and 3/4 of his crowd is gone. He said, "Where is everybody? What happened? We had a rockin' party going over here. What's going on now?" And he was told that everybody went over to Rabbi Abi, and he said what happened was because they heard someone playing music. So Pinchas said, he said, that is Mordechai tzaddik, who came to keep company for the holy Rabbi Abi of, so l'chaim u'lebracha. Wow, what a good tzaddikim. L'chaim, l'chaim. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 wow. By the way, I want you to know that on Pinchas of Koritz, Baruch Hashem, we can probably have 10 Melaveh Malkas, and we will not tell all the stories that there are from it. It's a lot. Baruch Hashem, I love the tzaddikim that a lot have been printed on them. It makes my work harder and easier. Harder is because I can't recall at all the amount of stories that I read today and yesterday from him. So whatever is popping into my mind is meant in Hashemayim that I have to say. This story I heard, it's a famous story, but I heard it from Rabbi Ginsburg in Eretz Yisrael, who related this story from Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz. It's a beautiful story with a powerful message to it. There was a student of Rabbi Pinchas of Koritz that was a very, very big machmer. Very, very big machmer. Very strict. Very, very pious. Very, very strict. Overly stringent, especially when it came to Pesach. He had unbelievable chumris on Pesach. Of his chumris that he had, chumris means stringencies. One of his chumris was that he would every year build himself a new oven. Literally, he would make a special oven. He would build an oven for Pesach every year. He couldn't reuse the oven. It wasn't enough that he had a Pesach oven for year. He had to make himself a new oven every year. The other chumrah that he had was that he didn't use, some people have that chumrah today as well, he wouldn't use any water that was drawn on Pesach. All the water that he used on Pesach had to be prepared in buckets from before Pesach. What's the reason, how and when, is because chametz becomes batal. Before Pesach, chametz becomes batal, but after Pesach not. Once Pesach is Pesach already, the chametz is not considered null void. So he wouldn't, so therefore he would fill up barrels of water. And then his third chumrah was he wouldn't eat by anybody. He wouldn't even eat by his Rabbi, by the Pinchas. He wouldn't even eat by his Rabbi. Now I heard the story from Yitzchak Ginsburg. Yitzchak Ginsburg says that this chassid happened to be not taka such a tzaddik. But there were big tzaddikim, even students of Baal Shem Tov, that did not eat by their very own Rebbe, students who didn't eat by the Baal Shem Tov on Pesach. And the Alter Rebbe has a mimer, this is where Yitzchak Ginsburg says, that the Alter Rebbe has a mimer to explain this, how there can be people that are tzaddikim and they're more machmer than their Rebbe in kashrus and so on and so forth. There were such. Reb Hillel was an incredible machmer. Anybody knows Reb Hillel of Parich, the famous chassid. Reb Itcha Masmed, they had like people that were like crazy machmer. And sometimes they even outdid the Rebbes in chumras. But in any case, this chassid didn't eat. So it was Shvishal Pesach, and Reb Pinchas had a tish with his big talmidim. Very big talmidim came, and they were sitting by the tish together with him. And this chassid used to sit in a certain place. And as it says in Shmuel, Vayipakei Makim David, the place of David was missing. So the Pinchas suddenly turned and he said, "No, where is he? Where is he? He's absent." So they said to him, "You don't know about him? He's very, very machmer. He doesn't go anywhere. He only eats in his own house." And they were a little uncomfortable to say it, but he doesn't even eat at the Rebbe at your house. So the Pinchas is standing there, looks, and he says, "Go tell him that he has chametz in one of his barrels that he has of the water. There is a nice pretzel on the bottom." So they went to his house, and they come in at 3. They were already excited on this. They came in, and they said, "What's with the guest over here?" He said, "Let's see. The Rebbe says there's chametz in one of your barrels. He becomes pale. And he says, yeah. He says, in one of the water things. So they go and they help him open up, and they, hey! And he almost fainted. I mean, he was so, couldn't believe it. The guy is so careful, and so careful. And he did everything again and again to make sure he used to clean. What? There's no toil in the world that he didn't do. And for him to have a kosher to Pesach. And over here, mamish, real chametz in the water that he was using, he was beside himself. So he came to Reb Pinchas. And he said, Rebbe, how could this have happened to me? He asked 3 questions. The first question, he said, Rebbe, how is it that you have Ruach HaKodesh? You know, why didn't you tell me? And why you, till the last day of Pesach you waited? Could have told me earlier. I would have gotten rid of it earlier. I've been using this water the whole time. If you would have told me. The other question was, how could this happen to me? Why did the Eibishter be machshel me? If I'm so careful, why did God cause me to sin with such a big sin on something that is so important to me, and I'm so careful, and the Eibishter? And the third question was, Rebbe, give me a tikkun. Heal my soul. Rectify. Give me a way of rectification. So the Pinchas said to him as follows. On your first question, why I didn't tell you earlier, he said, because I didn't think about you, so I didn't know about your. He says, when did I have the moment, when, obviously I have Ruach HaKodesh, I can see what's going on. But I have to think about you. So, since you were not by my, if you would have come earlier to say hello, I would have seen you and I would have told you. But since you were keeping your distance, you weren't coming. So I didn't see you. But on that day, when everybody was sitting and your place was empty, I realized that you're not there, so I thought about you. And when I thought about you, a tzaddik looks at a person, he can see the stain. The first day he can see the darkness. So I saw that you have chametz. That was the first question. The second question, why did it happen to you? He said, because Yidden always wish each other a bracha. That the Eibishter should bless them, you should have a chag kosher v'sameach. You should have a kosher and freilich and Pesach. That we should have a kosher Pesach, because you can only have a kosher Pesach if God assists you. But you thought that you can make yourself a kosher Pesach. And if a person thinks that they can do it themselves, to make themselves a kosher Pesach without relying on God, without relying on the Eibishter shows you that you can't rely on yourself. For everything you need to ask Hashem. You need God's assistance for every little thing. And for a tikkun, he says, come back to me in a couple of days. Wait till after Pesach, things calm down, and I'll give you the tikkun, whatever the tikkun needs to be. So that's the story with a lot of lessons and important lessons. And now we want to wish a very big happy anniversary to Shimon and to Chani, who had having their first anniversary. They're on the non-Jewish calendar, but the Jewish anniversary is coming up since I wrote the Ksuba, I know that. On Rosh Chodesh Shvat, Be'echad l'Chodesh Shvat, Be'ez Hashem in 3 weeks, so you should celebrate your anniversary with a lot of simcha and a lot of joy, and all the other brachas and simchas and all the simchas that Be'ez Hashem will be coming soon should be b'shatayv u'matzlachas with all the brachas, l'chaim and l'bracha. Good to be mentioned in front of Pinchas of Koritz. The holy Pinchas of Koritz, by the way, just to show you what kind of tzaddik, one of his great students was Rabbi Yaakov Shimshon of Shpetivka. Rabbi Yaakov Shimshon of Shpetivka was one of the greatest, brilliant minds. He and the Alter Rebbe would a lot of times talk and learning. They were like geniuses. His student was Rabbi Yaakov Shimshon of Shpetivka, was also one of the Maggid students. He was a big baldarshan. He was a brain of a brain. He went up to Eretz Yisrael. He was one of the Rebbes that went up to Eretz Yisrael. He went when Reb Pinchas, as we said earlier, said that a healthy soul that's not depressed has a desire to go to Eretz Yisrael. So Reb Pinchas himself wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, but Hashem prevented him from going. He had many obstacles and he couldn't go. And he then said the reason he didn't go was because him being in Poland saved an entire community from a terrible magefa. There was a plague that came, and because he was there, in his chus, there was a lot of bracha and a saving. We're going to talk about, maybe, we'll see where we're going to get to. But he saved because he didn't go to Eretz Yisrael. But Rabbi Yaakov Shimshon went to Eretz Yisrael. So the holy Rabbi Yaakov Shimshon of Shpetivka once had a dream by night, and he saw a woman that was crying. Holy tzaddikim. The woman that he saw crying was the holy Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah was crying, and she said that she lost her husband. She's weeping because she's now an almana. Her husband is not with her. So the divine presence called the Shekhinah was weeping. And he woke up from the dream and he said, it must be that my Rebbe Pinchas passed away. Of course, there's no one in our generation who could be considered Baal de Matrinusa, the husband of the Shekhinah. Imagine that. The husband of the Shekhinah of Atzilus, someone who's in Atzilus, higher than Malchus, is the Merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because Reb Pinchas passed away, the Shekhinah was weeping that she doesn't have her husband alive anymore now, who can bring in this world, who can be mashpia da hamshachas to the Shekhinah. This is the great tzaddik, Reb Pinchas of Koritz. What? Baila de Matrinisa, which means the husband of the Shekhinah. Let's tell the story of how Reb Pinchas of Koritz was born. His father was named Reb Avram Abba. His grandfather was Reb Pinchas from Shklov. Was a huge Talmud Chacham, a very big. His great, they died. First of all, his last name is Reb Pinchas Shapiro. The Baal Shem Tov said there are 3 families miyuchasim b'Yisrael. There are 3 families that are really miyuchas, the ultimate miyuchas. The Shapiro family, the Horowitz family, and the Margolis. I think it was Margolis is the other one. These what? Margolis? No, Margolis. These are the 3 families miyuchasis that there are, and one of them is Reb Pinchas' family, Shapiro. They come from the Jews who lived in Spira, the ones who died al Kiddush Hashem. We say it in. They came from this. What is it called? What's the modern day of the city? The modern name of the city in Germany? Spires. Oh, Spires. That's the city. So the name comes from the Yidden who lived in Spires. So he's a great grandson of the Megala Amukas, Reb Nosson Nutta of. And one time, by the way, just leading up to that story, there was once a plague. Talk about COVID. There was a plague that broke out in Hungary, and in Ukraine and Volyn and Poland in that time, and people would nabach dying like. And Reb Pinchas got scared, and they were scared to catch the virus. To catch it, it would be. So what they did was he took his family and lived in the forest. For an entire summer, he lived with his family in the forest, because he didn't want to be in the town, so for contamination. So he lived alone in the forest, and he said, for myself, I'm not afraid. Because for me, the machla can't hit me, because I never said a lie, because I have no sheker in me. And the machla can only take a hold of someone who's not emes. But because I only speak emes and only truth, the machla, the thing the virus cannot get me. But he said, I'm worried because he saw that something, and he was worried for his wife. And his wife did fall ill. But still he said that my wife will be okay as long as I have fish for Shabbos. If I have fish for Shabbos, as long as I have fish for Shabbos, I'm okay. And there was one Shabbos that they weren't able to get fish. And then after that, his wife, that week or something so, his wife passed away. The fish that he had, and so it brings on the bottom that's the Megala Mukas. Zayda says that having fish for Shabbos, because it's Eina Pekicha, the fish whatever, it's mamtik all the dinim. So very, very important to have fish on Shabbos. So that was the story. But then he was left with a baby. His wife passed away and left him a baby. And he needed someone to nurse his baby. And no one wanted to nurse the baby because they were afraid that the baby would pass on the virus, because the mother died from the virus. So they were scared that the baby would cast her. So the Pinchas said that I make our promise that any woman who will take my baby and they'll nurse my baby, they will be healthy, they won't get sick. And he said, but the woman who refuses to do something, he was in my monkey business. So there was this woman who offered, and she took the baby, and she got sick. So they came running to Reb Pinchas, and they said to him, "It's not fair. Your baby, baby took the nurser, and now she's." So Reb Pinchas said, "Let her come." So they brought this woman who was ill in front of him, and he just stood and he looked at her, and his face changed a few times as he's looking at her. He was like, you could see on his face, and she was healed on the spot. Ganz good, and that was it. So Pinchas was born. His father, Rabbi Avram Abba, lived in Shklov, but then he moved from Shklov because there was some kind of but I think Rabbi Pinchas was born in Shklov. I think he was born in the city of Shklov. What happened was, his father had a minhag never to talk before davening. Never in the morning he wouldn't talk. He wouldn't say anything ever before davening. So one time he he was on his way to shul, and some non-Jew stopped him, and he had a bar of gold, and he said to him that, "I'm not sure whatever the quality of this gold," and he knew he was a maven on gold, on metals and precious metals, and he said, "I'll give it to you at a very, very good price. I'll sell it to you." And so he motioned to him, "Come back to me later." And the guy guy wanted to do business right away, and he said to him, "No, afterwards." And the guy got frustrated, didn't want to wait, and he went to someone else, and he sold him the bar of gold for a very, very, very low price. And the other person went and became an usher gadol, became a very rich person because he bought the loads so cheap, and now it was really worth so much more. And this was so that night. This Avram Abba, the father of Reb Pinchas, had a dream, and in his dream, his father Reb Pinchas, who had passed away, said to him that because in Shemayim there was a rash gadol, there was a great rash, that you were able to make so much money, but you didn't want to budge from your minhag, not to talk before davening anything. So there was a sacrifice over there. So because of that, they were geyser that you'll have a son that will be born that will light up the world like gold. And that was the bracha that Reb Pinchas was born. The story regarding the sreifa that burnt, and the parents were crying that they lost their yichus. So the story is told about the Mizritcha Magid, and the story by the Einiklach of Reb Pinchas is told by regarding Reb Pinchas. Both of them have the story that they said that the yichus will start from me. So the story goes on the Magid, and on Reb Pinchas talking about his childhood. Oh, we have gewaldige stories from Reb Pinchas and Reb Tzvi, the son of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, Reb Tzvi, the son of the Baal Shem Tov's yahrzeit is in Teves. A few years ago, 2 years ago, I think we did, or 3 years ago, we did Melaveh Malka about Reb Tzvi, the son of the Baal Shem Tov. So I would like to tell you the stories of Reb Tzvi, the son of the Baal Shem Tov. But before that, we'll tell you a story of how Reb Pinchas, his father, who was a Mesnagid Gadol, became a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov. This story is brought in Sefer Shifchei HaBaal Shem Tov. There's a story of how Reb Pinchas, his father, became a chassid of Baal Shem Tov, and then we'll tell some stories about Reb Tzvi with Reb Pinchas, and maybe some other stories if I will remember. L'chaim. L'chaim. The microphone is here. Okay, let's reverse the order and let me tell you first the stories. Chaim, let's reverse the order and let me tell you the stories first from Reb Tzvi, the son of the holy Baal Shem Tov, and his amazing stories with Reb Pinchas. Gewalt. So Reb Tzvi, the holy son of the Baal Shem Tov, was able to see, had incredible vision. He was able to see for 400 miles. Everything around him, he can see what's going on. He had meta glasses back then. Much better than the meta glasses. He was able to see. And one time he lost his vision. His powerful spiritual vision he lost. So and his father wasn't alive anymore. So he came to the Pinchas of Koritz to ask him, why did he lose his power to see? So the Pinchas told him, the reason is because you're not married. He was married, and his wife passed away. So now you're living without a wife. So since you don't have a wife, shari b'lo you're without a woman, without your wife, you don't have the power to see. Because he very much wanted to regain that spiritual light, so he decided that it's time that he really makes an effort to remarry. So he went and he spoke to a shatchin in the town, and she suggested a wealthy woman who lost her husband, and they made the shidduch. And this wealthy woman, said to Reb Tzvi, "Don't worry, now you don't have to worry at all for parnasa because I'm going to run the business. I've got Baruch Hashem. You can sit and do your holy, godly things all day long." Fine. So this was the second marriage for Reb Tzvi. One time, she, as a businesswoman, sent money with a few merchants. She invested with them that they should take the money and go. They went to a certain fair, whether it was in Leipzig or wherever it was that they went to buy merchandise. And in the night, when they were staying in the hotel with all the money, there were thieves that came in, and they were stealing all the money that was there. It was a break-in. Reb Tzvi, who got his vision back, was noticing how these guys are breaking into the money that his wife had sent, but he can see it. So he gave a cry out. He gave a big krech. He says, "Gewalt!" Because it bothered him that the money now, there's a lot of money that they sent, and now it's going to be, it's lost. All right? And, they came back without the money, fine. It was a big loss. And the Reb Tzvi lost his vision again. So he came back to the Pinchas of Koritz and he said, I'm now married, why do this? So he told him, because, hold on one second. So he told him, I just want to say it correctly. He sold him like this, and that's because you're worried about money, he said. That's why you lost your thing. Because a holy person like you should not daiga about gashmias. You shouldn't have any worries about gashmias. If you're worrying about material things, you lost your vision. He davened for him and he put him back. So what's amazing is you see that there are people who see, and there are people who control the seeing of those who see. It's a different level. It's a level to be a tzaddik. It's a level to be the one who can tell the tzaddik who doesn't see why he's not seeing and give him back the riyah. There's a different nusach to the story. There's a different version to the story. Was that Rabbi Hirsch, the son of the Baal Shem Tov, once came to Rabbi Pinchas. And he said, before he even said anything, Rabbi Pinchas said to him in Yiddish, Ich weiß für was ihr seid zu mir gekommen. I know why you came to me. Amol fleckt ihr sein 400 Mile. It used to be that you used to see 400 miles at him. Alles was es tut sich. You would be able to see everything that's happening 400 miles around you. Letztens is das zugenommen von dir geworden von euch. Lately, you're not seeing like this. Das ist der Fall. Früher hat nicht gehabt kein Geld. There was once a time you didn't have any money. Is euer Kopf gewesen riek. So you had a very calm head. Because you see, all the people with money are worried that their house is going to burn, this is going to burn. That's I tell my wife, what are we worried? The only thing I needed to take, if there's a fire, I take my mic, the Rebbe dollars, and a pair of pants, and what else do I need? The ganze business is here. What do we have? People have money, have a ganze Geschäft, this is going to burn, that's going to burn. So that's what he said to him. He said, was hast du zu sorgen? I have a few nice bottles of wine. Okay, and I told my wife when I left, I said, I forgot to take, you see, the nice, good wines. Everybody's got to have something. So I have them. In any case, is eier Kopf gewen riek, you had a very calm head. Letztens is geworden eier moyach mehr tumultig. Your head is becoming more tumultig mit Geld. That's why you don't see anymore. So then, you know what he said? You would expect that. What would he say? Okay, take away the money. You know what he said to Rabbi? He said, okay, you can take away the vision. He says, what did the vision help me? I can see all over, but I can't do anything about all the things that I see. I see tzaddiks, I see things, and I can't help always. So then what do I need the vision for? I can't help. That's interesting. But there's another story, Taka, with Rabbi Tzvi, that illustrates, Taka, the need for a person to have gashmias, and that he should be fine, should be able to serve Hashem. And what happened was, Rabbi Tzvi once said as follows. He said, when I had a hardship in Avodas Hashem, I went to all the students and the big tzaddikim, and no one can help me until I went to Rabbi Pinchas. And Rabbi Pinchas was able to help me. And he said, what happened? So he didn't tell the story. The story that happened was as follows. Reb Moshe of Slovita, the son of Reb Pinchas, related this story. And he said when he was a little boy, by them, it was very poor in the house. But Erev Shabbos was a happy day because at Shabbos they had a little more food. For Shabbos they kratzed together a little more food, so it was like a yontif before Shabbos was coming. Everybody was so happy because they had a little piece of fish, a little something. It made them very happy. So one time he says, Erev Shabbos, my father was looking out the window and he saw a little baidel drive by. A baidel is a small little wagon. I guess it's a wagon for one person, small little wagon. And my father ran out of the house and he ran to the wagon and he brought the person that was in there, a very tall person, he says, and he was wearing a shal. Interesting. He was wearing a scarf, I like the way it says. And he getrugen a shal. He wore a shal, which is a scarf over his head. And he's very excited to have this guest. He brings him into the house and he right away goes and he gives him to eat. It was an Erev Shabbos. He gives him food. And then he goes running in the kitchen and he tells his Rebbitzin, make a lot for Shabbos this week. We have a very special guest. And also make sure to make the med. Med is a certain type of it was a homemade alcoholic drink that they used to drink. He said, make the med, you should make it for, because she said, we don't have money to take. We don't have, there's no. So he says, take your 2 leichters, she had 2 silver leichters, and go pawn them, go give them as a thing, and then you'll get money, borrow the money with the 2 silver leichters that you have. And like this, we'll have, so that's what she did. And Shabbos, this guest was by them. Now, by the meal, this Reb Moshe used to sing beautifully. Rav Moshe, the son of Reb Pinchas, he had a beautiful voice. He would sing beautifully. So Reb Pinchas told him to sing Zmira Shabbos, to start singing. But because of the fear he had from the guest, looks like the guest had a very distinguished look. He had fear of him, and he didn't want to sing. So his father told him later again, Moshe, sing. He was scared, he didn't sing. And finally, the Oirach takes a look at him and says, no, sing. And he froze and he couldn't sing. Torah Pinchas went and made to his son like this, meaning better sing because you don't want to get this man upset. So he started singing and he didn't stop singing the whole Shabbos. He was singing and singing and singing. Meanwhile, the Oirach spent Shabbos there. Matzah Shabbos, Reb Pinchas says to his family, I'm leaving, I gotta go, I have something very important to take care of. Make sure, however, the guest is staying here, make sure to take care of him, look after him, make sure he has whatever he needs. So they put him in a room, Reb Pinchas had left. He didn't come back till the next Erev Shabbos. He comes back Erev Shabbos, and he tells his wife again, make a nice Shabbos, a very nice Shabbos. We have special guests for the guests this week, make a special Shabbos. So she said, I don't have any money. So he said, we have one more leichter. You already pawned out 2 of the leichters. You have one more leichter, give that leichter, pawn it out, and borrow money. So Rav Moshe said, you know what I did that week? Because my mother gave away her last leichter, I had to make a clay something for her to put her candles in. And I myself made it for her to be able to put her candles in. And we didn't have anything, but yet she was able to make Shabbos. After Shabbos, when the guest left, Reb Pinchas said, you know who that was? That was Reb Tzvi, the son of the holy Baal Shem Tov, who came to us for Shabbos. And you know why he came to me, he said? Came to me because he had a problem. He was feeling hardships in his avodas Hashem. And I told him the reason why he's getting stuck and he's getting blockages and so forth is because he's having a hard time begashmias. And physically he doesn't have what he needs. And that's disturbing him and it's bothering him. So when I told him that, I said I can fix the problem. So I went for an entire week collecting. Reb Pinchas collected money. And that's where he came back. He gave him and I sent him off so he should have. And that's what he said later, that none of the other tzaddikim can figure out my problem. And Pinchas was able to figure out that he simply was having a gashmiistic, a hard time. And from this we learn out that you need to have begashmias, whatever they need, so they shouldn't have to worry. And so they should be able to have all the material needs, so we should be able to serve Hashem with moichin, with good moichin, with proper moichin. And now I'll tell you one last story from the Baal Shem Tovs. I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. They never tell the end of the story, and the women always ask that part. See? I'm not sure. Because he had a wealthy wife later. Yeah. He said you don't have to worry about Gashmias. In any case, back to the story in Shifchei Baal Shem Tov relates as follows. Crazy story. That Reb Pinchas, and it's funny that the beginning of the story seems not to have anything to do with the end of the story, but this is the way the story is reported, so I'm going to relate the story as it is. Reb Pinchas and the Maggid were once collecting money for a friend of theirs that maybe was in jail or something. Someone ran into trouble and ended up in jail, and Reb Pinchas and the holy Mezritcher Maggid went together collecting money. And they were collecting or whatever, and they weren't making enough that they needed, and they were losing. And then they said, hey, they hear the news that the Baal Shem Tov is in the city of Kamenke, that Shabbos. And the city of Kamenke wasn't too far from where they were. So they said, let's go to the holy Baal Shem Tov. And maybe the Baal Shem Tov will be able to help give us a bracha, and we'll be able to fulfill what we need to save this other yid. So they came running to the Baal Shem Tov. And they wanted to catch the Baal Shem Tov. It was her Friday. They wanted to catch the Baal Shem Tov before he went to the mikveh. Because they knew that after the Baal Shem Tov goes to the mikveh, you can't talk to him about anything. Because the Baal Shem Tov, he goes up to a place where he's just not shaykh even to talk to him. So they rushed, and of tzalachis, they got there, and the Baal Shem Tov was already coming back from the mikveh. So they knew too late. Too late, they missed the boat. But when they came to the Kamaka, to the city, some of the students of the Baal Shem Tov said, we see you have a thing. Just stand over there. When the Baal Shem Tov walks out, stand, because the Baal Shem Tov will know immediately, even without you saying to him, what's going on. So it was still Friday. They stood on the side, and the Baal Shem Tov walked by, and he saw them, his two students, and the Baal Shem Tov went like this, like that they should leave him alone. So, okay, they backed off. So that's like the story with this part. But then it continues that Reb Pinchas had then heard that his father, Rabbi Avram Abba, the father of Reb Pinchas, was in the city of Mariupol. Mariupol is a city which is in Ukraine, which, by the way, I think it was bombed very much during the Russian. And the city of Mariupol is very close to Kamaka. It's just across a river. So he was afraid that if his father hears that Reb Pinchas is in Kamaka for Shabbos, that his father might decide to come to be with his son. He didn't want his father to come to be with him because he knew his father laughs from the Baal Shem Tov, is not a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov, and thinks the Baal Shem Tov is just whatever. And he always asks his son, what do you see in him? What do you see in him? So he was afraid that his father would come and he would join him in the shul. And he would act chutzpahdik to the Baal Shem Tov. And Reb Pinchas was terrified that would happen. So in order to prevent his father from coming to Kamaka to visit his son, or maybe he decided to avert the problem from the get-go. So what did he do? He decided to go be with his father in Mariupol for Shabbos. So he traveled, so he went, it was still time to Shabbos, he went to Mariupol. When he came to his father, his father said to him, his father told him something? No, he just stayed with him. But his father decided on Shabbos morning, that he wants to go, Shabbos morning, it was walking distance, that he's going to cross the river, and he wants to go to Kamaka, to the Baal Shem Tov. And Pinchas was so nervous. And his father did it. He went together with him, and they came to the shul, and the Baal Shem Tov was davening for the Amid Shachris. Baal Shem Tov was davening Shachris. His father was a great tzaddik, he was a great man, stood not far from the Baal Shem Tov, and his son was getting very nervous because his father started davening, and his father was davening very loud. And the people didn't want to disturb the Baal Shem Tov, but his father was saying the words really loud, like loud. And he was getting pins and needles that his father is like disturbing the Baal Shem Tov, and he didn't like it, and he was scared that something would happen. And behold it was. The Baal Shem Tov didn't say anything to his father during davening. But then when they opened up the Aron HaKodesh, it was Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, and they took out 2 Sifrei Torahs. So the first one they gave to the Baal Shem Tov. And the second one they gave to this father, Rabbi Avram Abba, of the Pinchas of Koritz, they gave him the Sefer Torah. When he took the Sefer Torah, the Baal Shem Tov turned around, and the Baal Shem Tov said, take away from him the Sefer Torah. In a way. So they took it away from him, and it was like an insult to him, that they took away the Sefer Torah from him. And he was scared that his father would. Baruch Hashem didn't. They davened, and after davening, his father left, went back to Mariupol, to his host, wherever he stayed, ate Suda Shabbos, took a little Shabbos nap, and afterwards, towards Suda Shlishis, his father came back to Kamika, to where the Baal Shem Tov was, for Mincha and for Suda Shlishis. So they were eating Shalosh Shudas. The minig was like this. When the Baal Shem Tov used to frequent the city of Kamika quite often. So the way the minig was the Baal Shem Tov had his own tish, his own table, and the Chassidim would be with him, whoever was Chassidim of the Baal Shem Tov. And see, that's where we think the Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem Tov was pretty new in town. So there was the Chassidim of him, and then there were the rest of the shul was sitting Dra Yikra over there, drinking seltzer and sardines on the side table. Just not everybody was coming to the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov had his own corner in the shul, and they were doing their other business there. The people were afraid that the Litvak, who came, that they didn't want this to make tzaras with the Baal Shem Tov. So they invited him to the other table. So he sat with them, and they were machabed him, and said. But when the Baal Shem Tov started saying Torah, he jumped up and he stood opposite the Baal Shem Tov, and he was looking right into his face. And Rabbi Pinchas was getting very worried that don't look into his face. What are you looking like this? Because I guess it was like, on a tzaddik like that, it's not so simple to stand and look at his face. He was afraid. But he stood there and he watched the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov finished Torah. He went back to his place. And they served meat. I don't know, it says they brought basar, they were meat. And then they were ready to get up to daven Ma'ariv. Ready to get up Ma'ariv, Hurachon, daven Ma'ariv. They benched. And the Baal Shem Tov said, no. I have some more Torah to say. Really, I shouldn't say this Torah, the Baal Shem Tov said. I wasn't going to say any more Torah. But because there are those who say that this Torah that I'm going to say right now is Torah that was said in my name in Gan Eden, because people say that this Torah that I'm about to say is Torah that they said in my name in Gan Eden, I'm going to say it. So the father of Reb Pinchas stands opposite, and he's listening, looking, and the Baal Shem Tov said the Torah. And after Ma'ariv, Reb Pinchas' father said, he is the one. He is the one. He is the one. So Reb Pinchas said, "Was it does?" He says, "Let me tell you." He said, when the Baal Shem Tov insulted me today, don't think I didn't tell him back. Actually, after davening, I had it out with him. I told him off. Who does he think he is? I gave it to him. But when I went back home to sleep, in my dream, I saw that in Gan Eden, that they brought in the Sar HaTorah, the minister of Torah, and the minister of Torah said a Torah in Gan Eden in the name of Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. And I woke up from my dream, and I was blown away. And I said, in Gan Eden, they chaz a Torah from Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. Can it be that this is the Baal Shem Tov? Maybe it's some other one. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it's Nishter. Maybe it's him. So I said, let me go back and listen. That's why every time he said Torah, I jumped up to listen. And then, when the Baal Shem Tov stood up, the Baal Shem Tov said, I really shouldn't say this, but because there are those who say that in Gan Eden they say Torah that they heard from me, I'm going to say this Torah. So he said this Torah. And he said that was the exact Torah that he heard in his dream, that the Sar HaTorah said in the name of the Baal Shem Tov in Gan Eden. So he pointed, and that's why he said, Das is this is Taka him. And he became a Chassid from the Baal Shem Tov. The same story that they say about the Baal Shem Tov. There's a crazy story about the Baal Shem Tov that they once came to him, and they found the Baal Shem Tov in two places at the same time. That he was there, and the people went to the shul, and they found him there, and he was there, and he was there. There's a story like that about Reb Pinchas of Koritz as well. The two tzaddikim came to see him, two tzaddikim. And who was it? Who was the tzaddikim? I don't remember who it was. I could be one of them was the Reb Wolf of Zhitomir. There were two tzaddikim who came to see him. And they went first to his house, and they met him there. And then they said, okay, it's before Shabbos, they'll go to shul. When they got to shul, they saw that he was in shul already. So they were surprised because they gone right away, and he was still in his house doing whatever he was doing. And then when they saw him in shul, so they said to one of them, maybe they thought maybe he rushed somehow, he has a fast away, he mamished, ran and did. So one of them, we said, you go back and check, I'll stay here. So he went back and he checked, and he said he saw him in the house. So there you go. It's tzaddikim that can be in two places at the same time. Tzaddikim that are hard. So it says, so the tzaddik said, it's not a chiddush, Pinchas Eliyahu, Pinchas and Eliyahu, and Eliyahu is in many places at the same time. If there is a few brisin happening at the same time, Eliyahu, Friday, Pesach by night, he goes to every Jewish home. So Pinchas Eliyahu can be in many places at the same. Let me finish. He was nostalgic. I'll talk about his nostalgics for a second. He passed away because he decided that he's going up to Eretz Yisrael a second time. First, they stopped him, and then he said he stopped because of a magefa, that he stopped. He did whatever avodah he did to stop a plague, and he felt that was the reason why they kept him back. The second time he went up to Eretz Yisrael, he set off to go. Before I have to say one more story. Before the quick story. One time he traveled. One time after the Baal Shem Tov passed away, he wanted to travel very much to the Baal Shem Tov's cave, to the Baal Shem Tov's tzion, to the Baal Shem Tov's oil. He wanted to travel very much, and he didn't have money and he couldn't travel. He finally he was able to or made arrangements. He was able to go. And when he was set off and he was ready to leave, he canceled the trip. So they said, "What is?" He said that I canceled it because I realized that a thought went into my head that on the way going, I'm going to go through various different towns and chashamachen geld, because he was a tzaddik and people would come and give him pidyonis and he would make money. And then he felt himself that to go to his Rebbe's oil and aside of it make money, that's ruining the whole going. That he's making money with going to the Rebbe. That he's going to the Rebbe, he's going to the Rebbe. He doesn't want to go to the Rebbe and make money going to them. So that's what. But then I thought to myself, you know what he said? I thought to myself that I'm not, if people want to give me money, I'm not taking. Ich will gain to the Baal Shem Tov, and I'm not going to take any money when I give it. And that was my achlat. And I was ready to go. But then I realized that it's Baba Maisis. Because I'm not going to come home without a few dollars, that someone is going to slip him a check, a this, a that, and then, so I realized that when he's saying he's not going to go, he's not going to take money, for someone who was absolute emes. So he canceled his whole trip because he wasn't going to go because he didn't want side benefits. If he's going, he's going. I always sometimes used to feel that if I'm going to the Rebbe to New York, I should fly, not when I'm going to a chasana and then stop by, but go and come back just to the Rebbe, nothing else. Not even stopping for a Slurpee in 7-Eleven around the corner. Gegangen zum Rebbe, oil cookies you can have, this and that, train tzaddik, or 7-Eleven. That's the Indian. Nor zum Rebbe and nothing else. That's the story. But the other story is that when he passed away, so on the way going to Eretz Yisrael, he got sick. He came to a certain town, and he fell ill, and he saw that he was only 60, he was 65 years old at that time. And he passed away on Yud Elul. He said, the last words he says was the words Mayim Chayim, living waters. And that's when his neshama went out. But it's interesting, and they say a crazy thing, that a few years before that, he started fasting on Yud Elul every year, the day that would later be his yahrzeit. So when they asked him, why are you fasting out of all days in Elul, Punkt Yud Elul? So he says, because in Elul, darf men sein mer Yid. Yud is Yid. And Yid means more Jew. In Elul, every Jew tries to be more Yid. So that's why he dafka waits for Yid Elul, the 10th day of Elul, and that's when he fasted and he would daven extra barichas on you. But the real story was they found out later that he was celebrating his yahrzeit years before he actually was the day. Usually we say that no one knows when they're going to go, but I guess there are certain exceptions, like the great and holy tzaddik Pinchas, Ben Avram Ava, the holy tzaddik, Schusa Yagan Aleinu. May his merit stands for us. And he should be moichel me on all the stories that I didn't say, that I was going to say, but I don't remember all that. L'chaim, l'bracha, and it should be only brachas and mazel, and good things for all the Jewish people. Of Koritz to pizza. I said it today during the announcement. I said we're going to have a pizza party, and when I said it, I didn't know there would be a connection, but there is a connection. For Pinchas to pizza, I said the story about Michalov's Lotchever's Melaveh Malka, but it relates. One last thing to the women. The women are missing. I said today in shul when I invited everybody to Melaveh Malka that I would explain the shaychus of Reb Pinchas of Koritz to pizza. To pizza. So now I'm going to say the connection. So the same story I told you a year ago about Rabbi Michael Zlochever, but it's a connection between the two tzaddikim. Rabbi Michael Zlochever once got sick, and his children were very worried for him. They didn't have who to turn to, so they went to the Pinchas of Koritz to ask for a bracha. When they came to him, the Pinchas said that the reason why he's ill is because one of his chumras that Rabbi Michael of Zlochever had was that he didn't eat cheese. And cheese, so the cheese was not being eaten by the tzaddik, so the cheese went up to Hashem and complained that the tzaddik is not eating me. So because of that, tell your father he should start eating cheese and he'll be okay. So he went back, and the children, they told him, and then Michael was healed. So that's the connection of the pizza to the Pinchas of Koritz. He really is happy that we eat the pizza and elevate the pizza, especially a man Yisrael that is on top of the pizza shop. Elevate it. Chai.